At this point of the cycle, it is pretty amazing that we've got prints of around 200k in the United States. And it does beg the question where on earth we are in this cycle. Michael, what are your thoughts on that?
I think historically you get job gains like this and the unemployment rate moves lower until it doesn't. So we're looking for the unemployment rate excuse me, to move to 3% over time. We think it's going to keep drifting lower. We think people may still be surprised at the amount of job growth that we generate. But as Rick mentioned, with all this fiscal stimulus coming in, we're going to need employment growth to get that output growth going. So 180 to 200,000 jobs a month, I think, is what we'll see over the rest of the year, and the unemployment rate will drift lower, and that's what will deliver the 3 to 4 hikes from the Fed this year.
How do you think the Federal Reserve will respond to all of this? How do you think the reaction function is shaped and primed at the moment, Michael? Because for many people, they might be nervous seeing 3%, a 3 handle on unemployment, and nervous to see us go towards 3.5. Do you think they will remain patient?
I think for now, yes, that this was a solid report across the board, and yes, the wage data ticked higher, but I think they need to see more evidence that they're behind in order to kick them off of their gradual normalization stance. So I think this report makes them comfortable with going in June. I think it keeps them in track for thinking they're going to keep going this year, but the data will confirm that over time. So I think they're fine where they are right now. The numbers may be a little hot. It's warm, but not so hot as to make them think, wow, we're behind and gradual is no longer operative.
Michael, just one final question for you, because I know you've got a busy morning on the trading floor. Just the final one. Moving through neutral, Governor Brainerd raised that yesterday in a way that I think many people might not have expected it to come from, say, a relative dove like Governor Brainerd. What are your thoughts on the Federal Reserve being able to move through the neutral rate?
Well, I think they'll have to, right? If we're forecasting the unemployment rate to drop towards 3%, it's a substantial undershoot of their estimate of NAIRU. So you'd think policy would have to get somewhat restrictive over time. We can debate on how restrictive it needs to be. So I think she's just looking forward and saying, we have a pretty good outlook right now. The unemployment rate is likely to drift a little bit lower. Maybe neutral isn't where we ought to end up, and slightly restrictive is where we're headed. The dot chart says that. So I think she's just talking in words what the dot chart already says. So I don't think it's entirely new information, but the fact that somebody like Lael Brainerd is now saying it, to your point, I do think means, hey, this is the direction that we're going.